They thought the German Shepherd was becoming a threat to their son. He wasn't. He was the only one keeping him alive. The sound a 90-pound dog makes when it presses its full face against a 7-month-old baby is not a sound you forget. It is low, focused, and it stops every thought in the room. Brennan Kowalski had been a pediatric home health nurse for 9 years. She had seen dogs displace anxiety onto infants. She had written the documentation. She knew the terminology, the behavioral escalation stages, the liability language her agency used in reports. She trusted her training the way most people trust gravity. That was the problem. Asher was 7 months old, blonde, built like a small wrestler, the kind of baby who laughed at everything. He had been running a low fever for 3 days. Nothing alarming, a viral thing, the kind that moved through his daycare every October like clockwork. By Tuesday morning, his temperature had dropped. He was alert. He was eating. He was, by every measure, Brennan had spent 9 years learning to apply, getting better. Dax was a 4-year-old German Shepherd, 78 pounds, bought as a family dog 2 years before Asher arrived. He had always been composed around the baby, gentle in that particular way large dogs sometimes are with small humans, deliberately slowing himself, softening his approach, staying below the baby's eye line when he could. He was not the kind of dog anyone worried about. Until Tuesday. Brennan was in the kitchen. Asher was on the playmat in the adjoining room. She heard nothing unusual. No crying, no impact. She looked up from the counter, and Dax was on his belly on the mat, beside the baby, his enormous head turned sideways, muzzle pressed flat against Asher's chest. Not nudging, pressed, holding position. Asher made a small sound of surprise, and Dax didn't move. Brennan crossed the room, Dax back. He lifted his eyes to her, held them there for 2 full seconds, and did not move. She pulled him back by the collar. He went without resistance, and then immediately circled and returned, nose to the baby's chest again, lower this time, to the belly, to the face. That was the first time. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Over the next 6 hours, it happened 3 more times. Each time, Brennan separated them. Each time, Dax returned, with more urgency. By mid-afternoon, he had stopped returning to his bed between approaches. He positioned himself at the edge of the playmat and watched the baby with a focus that had no precedent in the 4 years they'd had him. Her husband Marcus came home at 5 and watched it from the doorway for 30 seconds. "Something's off with him," he said. Brennan was already nodding. "I know." She had seen resource guarding escalate before. She had seen large breed dogs develop fixation behaviors around new infants. It followed a predictable pattern, and this was following it. She had seen the outcome of ignoring those patterns, and she was not going to be that family. They moved Dax to the laundry room, door closed. Asher ate his dinner without incident. He was cheerful. He babbled. He fell asleep against Brennan's shoulder at 7:30, and she put him down in the crib, feeling the specific relief of a problem addressed. She had managed the situation. She was in control. She wasn't. At 11:14, Dax hit the laundry room door. Not scratching. Impact. The full mass of him thrown against the hollow core, like something that had been compressing for hours and could not compress any further. Then again. Then again. Rhythmic. Relentless. Marcus went first. He opened the door, and Dax pushed past him down the hall and into Asher's room. Both front paws on the crib rail, his face over the side. That low, pressed nose posture again? this time directly at the baby's mouth, his muzzle against Ash's lips, holding. Brennan was in the doorway. Asher was not crying. He was quiet, the wrong kind of quiet. The kind she recognized from work, not as sleep, but as something with no name she was prepared to say out loud. She reached into the crib. The limpness was wrong. Not dramatic, just wrong. A fraction too much give in the way his body settled into her hands. She turned on the ceiling light, looked at his lips, looked at the color she had last seen on a Tuesday afternoon in a house 40 minutes south, on a child she had arrived too late to help. She called 911 while Marcus was still asking her what was wrong. The paramedic team from Station 7 arrived in 9 minutes. Lead medic Tomas Velarde, 11 years emergency response, assessed Asher in under 90 seconds. His blood glucose was 34 milligrams per deciliter. Normal for an infant is between 70 and 100. At 34, the body begins rationing fuel to non-essential systems. The brain is not a non-essential system. At Children's Medical, Dr. Priya Sundaram, pediatric endocrinology, sat across from Brennan and Marcus at 2 a.m. and told them what had been happening since Sunday. Your son has a rare enzyme deficiency, she said. His body cannot process glycogen stores the way a healthy infant does. When he stopped eating fully during the viral illness, his reserves depleted without producing any of the external signals we would typically watch for. There was no dramatic symptom, no cry that sounded different, nothing a parent or even a trained clinician watching him would have flagged. She paused. Dax. Another 20 minutes at that level and the outcome of this conversation would have been different. She looked at Brennan directly. Something made you check. Has your dog ever done something you couldn't explain until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us below. These stories deserve to be heard. Brennan thought about it in the hallway while Marcus was signing paperwork. Dax pressing his muzzle to Asher's chest, to his belly, to his mouth. Not aggression, not displacement, the specific, careful placement of a nose that was reading a chemical change she had no instrument to detect. Hypoglycemia produces a compound called isoprene in exhaled air. In infants with metabolic disorders, the concentration shifts gradually as glucose levels fall. Dogs register that compound at parts per trillion, thousands of times below the threshold of human perception, and respond to it before any visible symptom emerges. No one trained Dax to do this. He learned it through proximity. He had been watching Asher's chemistry for 7 months, and he recognized when it became wrong. Every behavior she had read as escalating fixation had been a medical alarm. No one in that house had the instrument to hear. The laundry room door, the crib rail, the pressed muzzle at the baby's mouth at 11:14. The only thing that moved wrong was the door she had closed. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Asher came home on a Thursday. He had a diagnosis now, a management plan, and a continuous glucose monitor clipped to his left thigh. Brennan opened the laundry room door and didn't say anything. Dax walked down the hall, into the nursery, and lay down on the rug beside the crib. He put his chin on the floor. He exhaled once. He did not sleep. The next story is about a dog who started behaving differently around a family member 6 weeks before anyone understood why, and what the scan found when they finally listened.